When did humans first go to war? That's a big question. It's one people have thought about for a long time. And it's not simple. There isn't one day, one moment when humans just decided to fight in groups. It's more complicated than that. It's a journey through our history, a slow unfolding. First, we have to think about what we even mean by war. Is it just one person hurting another? Or is it something more? Most people, when they talk about war, mean organized group violence. It's when a bunch of people from one group fight a bunch of people from another group. It's not just a bar fight, it's not just an angry argument, it's planned, it's collective. And that's an important difference to keep in mind as we look back. Our story starts way back, millions of years ago, with our early ancestors. Think of Australopithecus, those creatures like Lucy walking upright, or Homo habilis, the first toolmakers, or Homo erectus, who spread out in Africa. Like these were tough times. Life was hard. There were predators, food was scarce, they lived in small groups. What do we see in the bones from these times? We see signs of violence, broken bones, head injuries, but most of this looks like individual stuff. Someone fell. Someone got into a fight with a rival. Someone was attacked by an animal. It's hard to tell if these injuries came from another human or something else. And even if they did come from another human, it doesn't look like organized group conflict. It looks more like what you might see in any animal group today, where individuals sometimes fight each other for dominance or mates. There's no real evidence of groups of Australopithecus or early Homo species fighting other groups. They were probably too busy just trying to survive. Their social structures weren't that complex. Their tools weren't made for fighting other humans in a systematic way. They were for hunting, for butchering, for processing food. They were just trying to make it through another day. Then we move forward, closer to ourselves. Think about Neanderthals, our close cousins, and early Homo sapiens. These folks had bigger brains. They made better tools. They had complex social lives. Did they fight each other in groups? It's still hard to say for sure. We find Neanderthal skeletons with lots of injuries. Many of these injuries look like they came from big game hunting. Think about trying to bring down a mammoth or a woolly rhino with a spear. It was dangerous work. So a lot of the broken bones we see could be from that. But some injuries also look like they came from other Neanderthals. A skull might show a blow to the head. A rib might have a puncture mark. But again, is this war, or is it just individual violence? Imagine two rival Neanderthal hunters arguing over a kill, or a group protecting their family from an outsider. That's not quite war, as we define it. There's very little solid proof of large-scale group-on-group fighting among Neanderthals. They also lived in small, spread-out groups. They didn't really have fixed territories in the same way later groups would. They moved around a lot, following the animals. This kind of lifestyle doesn't lend itself as much to large-scale territorial disputes that spark wars. And for early Homo sapiens, the story is similar for a long time. We were nomadic hunter-gatherers. We lived in small bands, we moved with the seasons, with the food. There wasn't much to possess beyond what you could carry. No fixed homes, no stored wealth. These conditions didn't really set the stage for war as we might imagine it. Conflict, yes. Disputes, sure. But organized attacks between large groups, that's tougher to find evidence for. So for millions of years, the evidence for war, real war, is pretty thin. There's violence, sure. Life was often brutal, but it mostly looks like individual struggles or small skirmishes, not systematic group warfare. Things start to get a bit clearer and more disturbing as we get closer to our recent past. We're talking about the Upper Paleolithic, say 50,000 to 10,000 years ago, and especially the Mesolithic, the period just before agriculture really took off. Here, we start seeing some sites that make us really wonder. One famous example is Jebel Sahaba in Sudan. This is a burial site dated to about 13,000 to 14,000 years ago. It's a mass grave. Over 60 people were buried there, and a lot of them, more than half, show signs of serious violence. Many have projectile points, like spear tips or arrowheads, embedded in their bones. Some have multiple wounds. It looks like many died at once, or over a short period. And it wasn't just men. Women and children were among the dead. This site is a really strong candidate for early warfare. It suggests an organized attack. A group of people came and killed a lot of other people. But was it a sustained war or a single horrific event? It's hard to say definitively. It's a snapshot, but it's a powerful snapshot. It shows that by this time, our ancestors were capable of deadly group-on-group violence. What caused something like Jebel Sahaba? Maybe it was climate change. The area around Jebel Sahaba was a lush river valley full of fish and game. But the climate was shifting. Resources might have become scarce, and when resources get scarce, people fight over them. They fight for their survival. Other similar sites exist from this period, though Jebel Sahaba is one of the most striking. They suggest that as human populations grew and as we started to settle into certain areas for longer, the potential for group conflict increased. If you have a good fishing spot or a fertile valley, other groups might want it. So you might have to defend it, but the real game changer, the thing that many researchers point to as the big turning point for the start of widespread organized warfare, is the Neolithic Revolution. This is when humans started to farm. It happened roughly 10,000 to 12,000 years ago in different parts of the world, especially in the Near East. Why would farming lead to war? It seems counterintuitive, right? Farming is about growing food, settling down. Shouldn't that make life more peaceful? But it didn't. It created conditions ripe for conflict. First, sedentism. People stopped moving around so much, they built permanent homes. They built villages, and eventually towns. When you live in one place, you accumulate things. You have a house, you have storage pits full of grain, you have tools, you have livestock. All of a sudden, there's something to defend, and something to steal. Second, property. The land became a thing. When you plant crops, you need that land. You invest your time and energy into it. It becomes your field. And if another group comes along and tries to take it or tries to graze their animals on it, that's a direct threat to your survival. The land became a fixed, valuable resource. This was a completely new concept for our ancestors, who had always just taken what they needed from the wild. Third, population growth. Farming allowed for more food production, which meant more people could be supported in a smaller area. Villages grew, population density increased, and when more people live closer together, there are more opportunities for friction, for disputes, for competition over resources. Fourth, food storage. Hunter-gatherers didn't store much food. They ate what they killed or gathered. But farmers stored grain, dried meat, other provisions. This created a new incentive for raiding. Instead of just trying to kill individual animals, an enemy group could now raid a village and steal an entire season's worth of food. This could be a matter of life or death for the raiding group, especially in lean times. And it could be devastating for the raided group. Fifth, social hierarchy and organization. As societies grew more complex, they developed leaders. They developed specialized roles. Some people might become warriors. Others might become farmers. A leader could organize a group for defense or for attack. Organization made larger-scale conflict possible. The archaeological evidence from the Neolithic period tells a stark story. We start seeing things that scream war. Fortifications villages started building walls. Big, thick walls, ditches, palisades. Why build these if not to defend against other humans? Places like Jericho, one of the oldest cities in the world, had massive walls thousands of years ago. That wasn't just to keep out wild animals. That was to keep out other people. Mass graves with signs of violence like Jebel Sahaba, but now more common. One famous example is the Talheim death pit in Germany from about 7,000 years ago. It's a pit containing the skeletons of 34 people, men, women, and children. Many show severe skull trauma, often from blunt weapons, and some have arrowheads embedded in their bones. They were all killed and thrown into a pit. It looks like a massacre, a swift and brutal attack on a village, likely by a rival group. Skeletal trauma. We see more and more skeletons with clear signs of wounds that could only come from human-on-human violence. Not just individual injuries, but patterns of injury consistent with group conflict. Broken forearms from trying to defend against blows. Projectile wounds, decapitations. Weaponry, while early tools could be used as weapons, dedicated weapons become more common. Better made spearheads, axes, slings, and later bows and arrows become standard. Some are clearly designed for fighting other humans, not just hunting animals. So, for many, the Neolithic Revolution is when war truly became a feature of human life. It wasn't just occasional violence anymore. It was organized, it was deadly, and it became a recurring part of human society. Now, let's also talk about the psychological side of things. Are we just naturally violent, or is it something we learn? Some people point to our closest living relatives, chimpanzees. Chimps live in groups. They have territories, and they sometimes engage in what looks very much like primitive warfare. Groups of male chimps will patrol their borders. They'll sneak into rival territory and attack isolated individuals from other groups, often killing them. They'll try to expand their own territory. This suggests that perhaps some form of group-on-group aggression has deep roots in our primate lineage. But chimps don't make weapons. They don't build fortifications, and their conflicts are often about territory and resources, similar to what we see emerging in human history with the rise of agriculture. So it's not a direct comparison, but it does make you think about the underlying potential for aggression that might have always been there. And humans have this strong sense of us versus them. It's part of how we form groups, how we bond. We like our own kind. We trust people who are like us. And sometimes that us feeling can lead to a them feeling, where outsiders are seen as threats, as rivals, as enemies. This tribalism, this in-group out-group psychology is a powerful force, and it can be manipulated, strengthened, and used to justify violence against other groups. So the debate often comes down to this: is war innate in humans, something always lurking, just waiting for the right conditions? Or is it a product of specific social, environmental, and technological changes? The archaeological record, for the most part, supports the idea that while individual violence has likely always been present, organized group warfare is something that became much more common and much more deadly after the conditions of the Neolithic Revolution took hold. It's not that people suddenly became violent, it's that the way they lived, what they valued, and how they organized themselves changed. And these changes made war a practical, even sometimes necessary, strategy for survival or dominance. Think about it. If you're a nomadic hunter-gatherer, your wealth is in your skills and your knowledge of the land. You can't really take anything permanent from another group without it becoming a burden. If you win a fight, what do you get? Maybe a few tools, some prestige, but you don't get a fixed asset. But if you're a farmer and another group attacks your village, they can steal your stored food, burn your fields, take your livestock. If you attack another village, you can gain all that. The stakes become much, much higher. So, there isn't a simple answer to when did humans first go to war. Individual violence, one person hurting another, probably goes back millions of years. And it's part of the struggle for survival, for dominance, for mates. It's a feature of many social species. But organized group conflict, what most people mean by war, that's different. That takes a certain level of social organization, a reason to fight collectively, and something worth fighting for or over. It seems like the seeds of this kind of conflict started to sprout in the late Stone Age, in periods like the Mesolithic, perhaps driven by increasing population density and competition over prime resources. Sites like Jebel Sahaba show us that by 14,000 years ago, we were definitely capable of mass violence against other groups. But it was the advent of agriculture, the Neolithic Revolution, that really fueled the fire. When we settled down, grew food, stored wealth, and built communities, we created the very conditions that made war a more common, more organized, and more devastating part of the human experience. It was a gradual emergence, not a sudden event. It was tied to how we chose to live, how we organized ourselves, and what we came to value. It's a sobering thought. The very advancements that allowed us to feed more people and build complex societies also laid the groundwork for large-scale human conflict. War isn't some ancient, unavoidable curse from our deep past, always with us since the very beginning. Instead, it seems to be a more recent development in our story, one that became truly entrenched with the choices we made about how to live and survive. And understanding that might just give us a little bit of hope for the future.